Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. Got 16 articles for you here this morning. All the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. First one we have is off of Fox News World, and it says, more than 1,500 injured in panic after soccer game in Italy. This is out of Milan, and it says, more than 1,500 people were injured when panic swept through a crowd of Juvenist fans watching the Champions League final in Piazza in northern Italian city of Turin, authorities said on Sunday. The Turin Perfect said in a statement that the crowd was taken by panic and by the psychosis of a terror attack, fearing that a loud noise was caused by attackers. The source of the loud noise that triggered the stampede remained unclear, officials said. The noise triggered panic among thousands of fans gathered in the Piazza San Carlo to watch the match pitting Jovinist against Real Madrid on giant TV screens. Fans were trampled as they tried to flee. Marco Galuni was pushed to the ground by the surging crowd. Fortunately, I managed to escape, he said. I was so scared, very terrified, as if escaping a narrow death. Another fan, Angelo Benelito, said the force of people pushing created a jostling, just like an earthquake. The ground was shaking. Most of the injured were treated for cuts and light contusions. 3, including a young boy who suffered cranial and thoracic trauma, were in serious condition, officials said. On Sunday, the piazza remained cordoned off by police. Workers cleaned up the debris left behind. Local officials questioned the wisdom of allowing the party to take place in the city piazza and not in a park with more emergency exits, as well as the failure to ban glass bottles, which were the source of many of the injuries. I thought it was really important to bring that to everyone's attention because there's going to be a lot of events taking place this summer with large crowds, and there doesn't have to be a terrorist attack in order for there to be panic and a lot of people get injured. So be very aware of your surroundings wherever you happen to go. The next article that I have for you, foxnews.com, it says London terror attack. British officials eye burqa ban and stripping citizenship. They're trying to play something here now. Y'all stop that. There we go. Got that shut down. It says, yet after another deadly terrorist attack swept through the streets of Britain late Saturday, lawmakers and leaders were scrambling to take back the reins and foil any further tragedies. British Prime Minister Theresa May, speaking Sunday after a meeting of the government's Cobra Emergency Committee, claimed there was too much tolerance of Islamist extremists in the UK and insisted that the country's counterterrorism strategy would be reviewed. Remain in preliminary stages. A British intelligence source told Fox News that it is an all-hands-at-the-pump approach, with joint intelligence operations to be carried out collaboratively with M15 Scotland Yard and the Army's Special Air Service, SAS, all involved. The points of focus include recruiting and deploying even more counterterrorism officers and pushing through new laws to round up suspected terrorists and, if convicted, stripping them of their citizenship as a deterrent. There is also early talk that things would go as far as banning the burqa, a source said. The burqa debate has for more than a decade divided much of the British community. In 2006, MP and Governor Minister Jack Straw first advocated support for such prohibition in the media, but several years later apologized following the backlash. Nearby European countries such as France, Germany, and Belgium have over the years implemented different degrees of legislation to restrict the wearing of the full face veils. It is just whispers at the moment, but if that goes live, one would guess that it will be enforced across the UK, the source noted. Furthermore, the UK government is said to be planning how to dismantle the pockets of extremism and enforce better mechanism for community integration. There's a lot of Muslim strongholds in the UK, from London and Luton to Birmingham, Burnley, and Blackburn, added the intel source. Right now, though, through weak policies, we have allowed the fundamentalists to spoil it for the majority. British authorities also said to be looking at ways to force large internet companies to ban extremist material on their search engines and additionally report any content they find. In her address Sunday, May vowed that the internet could no longer function as a safe space for jihadism. Another intelligence source confirmed that May's focus is very much on the role of the internet, restricting and monitoring, in the quest to infiltrate where cells congregate and how they communicate. 7 people died and 48 were wounded, several critically, when 3 masked assailants plunged a van into pedestrians on London Bridge. The attackers, also donning the fake suicide vest, then embarked on an on-foot stabbing spree at a nearby bar and were quickly shot dead by police. Tony Shania, founder and CEO of Multi-Operational Security Agency, who has been in contact with officials, told Fox News that the vests were stab-proof but not even bulletproof. Authorities announced Sunday that the raids were underway and that 12 individuals had been arrested in connection with the latest attacks. Saturday's assaults marked the third to have taken place in the UK in 2017 alone. On May the 22nd, British suicide bombers slaughtered 22 people, including children, and injured dozens more after an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. In March, a British convert to Islam killed 4 when he rammed his vehicle into people on Westminster Bridge and then fatally stabbed a police officer outside Parliament. The British Embassy in Washington, as well as a spokesman for May, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Next article is off of BizPac Review. It says, Poland got it right. Attacks. We refuse to open our doors to Islamic migrants. As carnage unfolds all around them, Poland is learning from the mistakes of others in preventing terrorist attacks at the hands of Islamic extremists. And the lesson is not allowing Islamic migrants into their country. Razad Cherninsky, a British-born Polish politician, said in the aftermath of Saturday's London Bridge terrorist attack that these incidents are often carried out by children of Islamic migrants who are citizens of European countries they live in, according to Radio Poland. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this guy's name right, Snarnecki or something, a European Parliament vice president, said these homegrown jihadists are frequently trained by the Islamic State. Led to a situation in which those trained on Islamic State territory in Syria, state territory in Syria, Iraq, young people with French, Belgian, Dutch, British, German citizenship returned to Europe, and somehow the authorities were incapable of monitoring them, he said. We, Poland, are learning from the mistakes of others, he added, and we will not open our doors to Islamic migrants. Tough stance on migrants when Europe was being inundated with refugees from the Middle East. We have no terrorist attacks in Poland because we withdrew from the plan approved by the previous government of accepting thousands of migrants known as refugees. The leader of Poland ruling, it looks like the PIS party, Jaroslaw Zarynski, said recently. Sarznecki, a member of the same party, had some advice for the UK should they want to remove the radical migrants. If a radical Muslim leader calls his brothers in faith at a mosque to fight with the unfaithful, then I believe these are grounds to expel that Ayman, he said, which is a reference to the holy war jihadists wage against infidels as a religious duty. article I have is off of the conservative Treehouse. It's called The Last Refuge. Arabia, Egypt, and Bahrain ties with Qatar. There's a history needed for context here, but first, here's the latest developments in the order of their occurrence. At 6 a.m., Bahrain's Foreign Affairs Ministry issued a statement early Monday saying it would withdraw its diplomatic mission from Qatari Doha within 48 hours and that all Qatari diplomats should leave Bahrain within the same period. The ministry's statement said Qatari citizens needed to leave Bahrain within 2 weeks and that air and sea traffic between the two countries would be halted. It wasn't immediately clear how that would affect Qatar Airways, major long-haul carriers. Bahrain blamed Qatar's media incitement, support for armed terrorist activities, and funding linked to Iranian groups to carry out sabotage and spreading chaos in Bahrain for its decision. At 7 a.m., Saudi Arabia says it is cutting diplomatic ties to Qatar and it has pulled all Qatari troops from the ongoing war in Yemen. Saudi Arabia made the announcement by its state-run Saudi press agency early Monday. It appeared to be timed in concert with an earlier announcement by Bahrain similarly cutting ties. At 8 a.m., the United Arab Emirates and Egypt have cut diplomatic ties to Qatar. The two countries have joined Saudi Arabia and Bahrain in cutting ties to Qatar amid a growing Arab diplomatic dispute with the small gas-rich nation. Both the UAE and Egypt made the announcement on their state-run news agencies within minutes of each other. Qatar has been a source of historic extremism and terrorist-related problems for the Gulf Security Council and aforementioned Gulf states. Here's some historic background for possible context on the latest developments. Qatar was the intermediary used by President Obama for covert arms and monetary transfers by the Obama CIA and Obama Clinton State Department, respectively. Qatar was also the chosen home for detainees when President Obama released the Gitmo terrorists. Most importantly, however, is the relationship between Qatar and Muslim Brotherhood when Egypt President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi named the Muslim Brotherhood a terror organization. Their leadership fled to safe harbor in Qatar. Egypt and President Fattah al-Sisi then began a month and years-long assembly of Gulf Arab states, called the Gulf Security Council, to boycott Qatar, cut all diplomatic ties, and isolate them until they renounce terrorism and stop providing safe harbor for extremists. Eventually, Qatar acquiesced and sent the Muslim Brotherhood to Turkey. President al-Sisi then asked Interpol to watch carefully and notify him if the Muslim Brotherhood were ever allowed to leave Turkey. Yeah, al-Sisi, a badass like that. Recep Erdogan gave the Brotherhood safe harbor in Turkey. 2013, President al-Sisi charged and prosecuted the leadership of Muslim Brotherhood. They fled to Qatar. In 2014, President al-Sisi followed the MB to Qatar and initiated sanctions against Qatar until they stopped financing and harboring terror. In 2015, unrelenting President al-Sisi then formed a coalition against Qatar, including the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who withdrew their ambassadors and isolated Qatar in the region. The extremist attack in Egypt last week was notably carried out by sympathizers of the Muslim Brotherhood. The attack was launched from Libya, Libyan Dawn, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, in Arabian Peninsula, called the AQAP, and Al-Qaeda, North Africa, called the AQIM, are all affiliates of the Muslim Brotherhood political extremist construct. All of these entities have found financial resources structured and or organized from inside Qatar. Against the backdrop of President Trump calling for a joint coalition against extremism and violent Islamic terrorism, it doesn't come as a surprise to see the Gulf Arab states once again confronting Qatar in 2017. The difference this time, in 2017, is they have a U.S. president willing to support global effort to hunt down and eliminate extremists. Drive them out. The next article I have for you is off of Newsmax, and it says Trump vows to do whatever is necessary to protect the U.S. Trump said Sunday he will do whatever is necessary to protect the United States from a vile enemy that he says has waged war on innocents for too long, vowing this bloodshed must end, and the bloodshed will end. Trump commented on the vehicle and knife attack that killed at least 7 people in London at the conclusion of a fundraiser for Ford's Theater, scene of one of the most famous acts of bloodshed in American history, the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Our thoughts and prayers and our deepest sympathies to the victims of this evil slaughter, and we renew our resolve stronger than ever before to protect the United States and its allies from vile enemy that has swagged war on innocent life, and it's gone on too long, Trump said in his first public comments on the attack late Saturday in a busy section of London. He previously had commented by a series of Twitter posts. This bloodshed must end. This bloodshed will end, he said, or said the tuxedo-clad Trump standing on stage with his wife, First Lady Melania Trump. As president, I will do what is necessary to prevent this threat from spreading to our shores and work every single day to protect safety and security of our country, our communities, and our people, he said. Trump said he had spoken with British Prime Minister Theresa May to express America's unwavering support and offer U.S. assistance as the British government works to protect its citizens and bring the guilty to justice. Earlier Sunday, Trump had criticized London's mayor after he sought to reassure residents about a stepped-up police presence following the attack, the third past months, arguing on Twitter for leaders to stop being politically correct and focus on security for our people. The mayor spokesman said he was too busy to respond to Trump's ill-informed tweets that began late Saturday. Trump also pushed his stalled travel ban, mocked gun control supporters, and pledged that the United States will be there to help London and the United Kingdom. Trump challenged London's Mayor Sadiq Khan. There was no reason to be alarmed. Khan spoke those words in a television interview Sunday in the context of reassuring Londoners about an increased police presence. No reason to be alarmed, Khan said, describing more visible presence as the police and all of us need to do to make sure we are as safe as we possibly can be. Trump wasn't satisfied and responded Sunday with a trio of tweets saying, "We must stop being politically correct and get down to the business of security for our people. If we don't get smart, it will only get worse. At least 7 dead and 48 wounded in terror attacks, and Mayor of London says there's no reason to be alarmed." Trump ended with, "Do you notice we are not having a gun debate right now? That's because they used knives in a truck." Khan's office dismissed the tweet, saying the mayor is busy working with the police, emergency services, and government to coordinate the response to this horrific and cowardly terrorist attack and provide leadership and reassurance to Londoners and visitors to our city. He has more important things to do than respond to Donald Trump's ill-informed tweet that deliberately takes out of context his remarks, urging Londoners not to be alarmed when they saw more police, including armed officers on the street. Comment after the attack came late Saturday on Twitter. He promoted a proposed travel ban on visitors from 6 mostly Muslim countries and refugees from around the world that has been blocked by U.S. courts. The Trump administration had, the Trump administration last week formally asked the Supreme Court, the highest court in the U.S., to allow the ban to take effect, arguing that restricting immigration by refugees and visitors from Iran Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen is necessary to protect the U.S. national security. A date for the court to hear the arguments in the case was not immediately set. We need to be smart, vigilant, and tough. We need the courts to give us back our rights. We need the travel ban as an extra level of safety, Trump tweeted Saturday after the attack. U.S. lawmakers from both political parties criticized Trump for raising the travel ban and assailing Khan. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, said he was concerned about Trump's call for the travel ban, even though the courts have continued to turn that down. Warner said Trump has had more than 90 days to review the procedures for admitting people from certain countries. If there's new procedures put in place, put those procedures in place. Call for this travel ban, which is, frankly, all of the leaders in the intelligence community have said would be, in effect, a slap in the face to Muslim Americans and others, and in many ways might actually incite more incidents, he said on CBS Face the Nation. Senator Susan Collins of Maine, a Republican member of the Senate Intelligence Panel, said the ban was too broad, but agreed with Trump that better immigration procedures are needed. Former Vice President and 2000 Democratic presidential nominee Al Gore said on CNN, State of the Nation, "I don't think that a major terrorist attack like this is the time to be divisive and to criticize a mayor who's trying to organize his city's response to this attack." I'll load up some more articles here real quick, because this seems to be the way the hamster likes to do his job. Like getting out here. It takes a second to do this to get everything working the way it should be working. The first one I have for you is off of BizPack Review. And in his wheel to get her going. It says Trump slams his own Justice Department with the original travel ban, not the PC version. President Donald Trump Monday with the stalling of his travel ban. The president put aside all of the potentially correct, called the ban what it is, a travel ban. Tweet of the day. He says people and the courts can call it whatever they want. What we need and what it is, a travel ban. At his own Justice Department for weakening the original ban, saying the Justice Department with the original travel ban. Down politically correct version they submitted to the Supreme Court. The Justice Department should ask for an expedited hearing on travel ban before the Supreme Court and seek much tougher version. Know that while the travel ban is being stalled in the courts, action is being taken to protect Americans from radical Islamic terrorism. But, in any event, we are extreme vetting people coming into the United States in order to help keep our country safe and political. Noticeably angry since the London terror attack last week, which came about a week after the Manchester terror attack. He tweeted about hypocrisy in ignoring the issue because it couldn't be narrative about gun control. The article is off of Liberty Headlines. As Senate committee launches first new Clinton corruption investigation. On the Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley has launched a new investigation of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's effort to thwart government corruption probe. Eunice, a Clinton Foundation donor and close friend of the Clintons. The Iowa Republicans' effort new official inquiry of Clinton since her unexpected loss in the 2016 presidential election to President Donald Trump. Often chanted "lock her up" during his many boisterous campaign rallies, But upon assuming the presidency, Trump and leaders of the Republican majority Congress displayed little appetite for reopening investigations of Clinton's tenure diplomat and multiple persistent allegations of pay to play involving Clinton Foundation investigative group reported in May that Clinton sent top U.S. diplomats to pressure Bangladesh Prime Minister and her son Saeed Wazed in an effort to country's of Yunus and the bank. Yunus was then managing director of the state-owned Bangladesh Bank. In a June 1st, 2017 letter to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Grassley repeated the DCNF charge that Clinton with the IRS tax audit if his mother did not back away from the corruption probe. Wazid has lived in the U.S. for 17 years. If the Secretary of State used her position to intervene in an independent investigation by a sovereign government simply because financial relationship stemming from the Clinton Foundation rather than the legitimate interests of the United States, unacceptable, Grassley told Tillerson. The official position as Secretary of State with her family foundation would be similarly inappropriate to determine whether the State Department had any role in the threat of an IRS audit against the son of the Prime Minister in retaliation for this investigation, Grassley continued. How U.S. ambassadors James and Dan Mozena, John Lokia, I guess it is, the deputy chief of mission, met with Wazid in the U.S. Embassy in Dhaka, Bangladesh's capital, while the corruption investigation was underway. Career diplomats. Another Agency for International Development, USAID, Administrator Jiv Shah with Wazid. Shah's agency awarded $13 million to Yunus organizations and another $11 million to allied Yunus during Clinton's tenure. The Department of State oversees USAID programs. The DCNF previously reported Clinton's aid to Yunus included 18 grants, loans awarded to 2 of his American-based foundations, the Grameen Foundation USA and Grameen America, usaspending.gov. Yunus was stripped of his directorship of the state-owned Grameen Bank in 2011 as a result of the Bangladesh government's review of his financial mismanagement of the bank and its microcredit loan program, peasants, mainly women. A Norwegian documentary charging Yunus diverted $100 million intended for Grameen Bank to his other organizations triggered the initial investigation against him. Funds shocked many in poverty-stricken Bangladesh, where the annual per capita income is about $3,600, according to the World Bank. Returned the money to Grameen Bank, but the government's investigation exposed serious financial mismanagement and found the microloan program failed out of poverty. He was forced to resign under a law making 60 the maximum age for the bank's top position. Time. Interest rates and payback amounts loans sometimes resulted in more poverty, not less. Paying the loans, a number of recipients in Bangladesh and India committed suicide. For Yunus dates to former President Bill Clinton's years. Both Clintons became micro advocates and enthusiastic backers of Yunus, the lending scheme. Bill Clinton reportedly lobbied the Nobel Prize Committee on behalf of Yunus. The committee awarded him the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize. Onward, Eunice was featured speaker at the glitzy Clinton Global Initiative's annual meeting. He donated between $100,000 and $250,000 to CGI, $50,000 to Clinton Foundation, according to the Clinton Foundation website. BCNF, it was astounding and mind-boggling to him that between 2010 and 2012, senior State Department officials repeatedly pressured him to drop the Grameen Bank investigation. They threatened me with possibility of an audit by the Internal Revenue Service, Wazid said. They would say over and over again, Eunice has powerful friends, and we all knew they were talking about Secretary Clinton. Everybody knew it was Mrs. Clinton. Grassley noted Tillerson that Wazid recounted for Senate investigators 2 conversations with then Deputy Chief of Mission to Bangladesh, John, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Danolotsky or something, which he mentioned that Wazid may be audited by the IRS if he failed to use his influence to get his mother to stop the investigation into Eunice. Grassley added new details, stating furthermore, he was told by these same officials that Eunice was communicating with Secretary Clinton and her staff for assistance, and in turn, Secretary Clinton's staff put pressure on the embassy in Bangladesh to intercede on Eunice's behalf. The World Bank also unexpectedly decided during Clinton's tenure in 2012 to rescind a $1.2 billion loan while the IRS was pressuring Wazid. The funds were sought to build a key bridge near Dhaka. Clinton's State Department aides kept her apprised of developments throughout the probe. When Clinton's confidant, Milan Verveer, told her of resignation on May the 14th of 2011, the former Secretary of State described it as sad indeed. In 2016, Grassley complained about the Clinton Foundation to former Attorney General Loretta Lynch and to the FBI regarding public corruption charges. However, this is the first time since Trump took office that Grassley renewed an investigation into Clinton, this time for her retaliatory actions against Bangladesh on behalf of Eunice. Grassley requested that Tillerson provide the judicial panel emails and State Department records for communications by June the 15th. Also asked if the matter had been referred to Justice or the State Department's Inspector General. If not, why not? Grassley asked Tillerson. The next article is off of Newsmax. Trump won't block Comey's testimony to Congress. President Donald Trump will not assert executive privilege to block fired FBI Director James Comey. Hang on. There we go. From testifying on Capitol Hill, the White House said Monday, setting the stage for dramatic public former top law enforcement officials' dealings with the commander-in-chief. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said the president's power to invoke executive privilege is well established, but she said Trump wanted to allow for a swift and thorough examination of the facts related to Comey's ouster and the multiple investigations into his campaign's possible ties to Russia. Comey is scheduled to testify Thursday before Senate Intelligence Committee. It will mark his first public comments fired last month. White House officials had weighed trying to block Comey's by arguing that his discussion with the president pertained to national security and that there was an expectation of privacy. However, officials ultimately concluded that the optics of taking that step would be worse than the risk of letting the former FBI director testify freely. Also said that the president likely undermined his ability to privilege by publicly discussing his dealings with Comey in tweets and interviews. Lawmakers in both parties have urged Trump to allow Comey to testify publicly. On Sunday, Senator Roy Blunt, a Missouri Republican and a member of the Intelligence Committee, said the president would be better served by getting all this information out. sooner rather than later. Let's find out what happened and bring this to a conclusion, Blunt said on Fox News Sunday. If you don't want to do that, I think by invoking executive privilege on a conversation you had apparently with nobody else in the room. Comey associates have alleged that Trump asked the FBI director if he could drop an investigation on security advisor Michael Flynn and his Russian contacts. The White House has denied the president made that request. The next article is also off of Newsmax. It says Trump to push for $1 trillion for roads and bridges. And get the hamster to calm down here. Seems to be having a convulsion. There we go. President Donald Trump is launching a major push for a $1 trillion overhaul of the nation's roads and bridges, a key item on his domestic agenda that gained little traction amid a slew of controversies that have the White House. A series of events this coming week to highlight his efforts to modernize American infrastructure, the highway, waterway, electrical, and airway systems on which the nation operates. His campaign for public and private funding for the projects and from the White House, where he'll speak about upgrading air traffic control in Ohio on inland waterways and through meetings with mayors, governors, and transportation department officials. The Trump administration has struggled to gain traction on many of its economic policies. Job growth has slowed in recent months instead of accelerating as the president predicted. He has tax legislation moving through Congress have been stalled and no bill has been written. His budget plan released during his foreign trip included math errors that enabled the White House to falsely claim that its tax plan would deliver both faster growth and balanced budget. Has been overshadowed by ongoing probes into whether Trump's campaign officials colluded with Russian officials to influence the 2016 election, as well as scrutiny over Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey, who is scheduled to testify on Capitol Hill on Thursday. Policies on the agenda, such as health care and taxes, come first on a fast-closing legislative calendar. Both modernizing the nation's infrastructure remains a challenge with the broad public support. Trump's push to revamp deteriorated roads, bridges, airports, and railways aims to unlock economic growth and succeed in an area where his predecessor, former President Barack Obama, was thwarted by a Republican-led Congress. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you are a farmer in the Midwest or a mother driving your kids to school, or a college kid flying back and forth to school, you're affected by infrastructure, said White House economic advisor Gary Cohn in a conference call with reporters. Cohn said the falling behind is affecting economic growth in the United States. The president wants to fix the problems, and he doesn't want to push these liabilities into the future. On Monday, Trump called for improving the nation's air traffic control system by separating operations from the Federal Aviation Administration, a key priority for the U.S. airlines. He said the current air traffic control system, antiquated, that his proposed changes would lead to cheaper, safer travel. The president's plans to travel to Ohio on Wednesday to address ways of improving levees, dams, and locks along the inland waterways that are critical to agricultural exports. His visit include a speech likely to touch on partnering with states and local governments. Cohn said governors and mayors are scheduled to meet with Trump at the White House on Thursday for a listening session focused on efficient use of tax dollars projects. On Friday, Trump will visit the Transportation Department to discuss regulatory changes related to roads and railways. Trump has noted that the approval process for permits frequently can drag on for a decade and has pressed to shorten the length of review process. Infrastructure follows the government's monthly jobs report, which showed hiring slowing down in May. The the economy has added an average of 121,000 jobs over the past 3 months, monthly average of nearly 187,000 last year, despite Trump's promotion of his economic prescriptions. On infrastructure, the administration has pointed to plans for a package of tax breaks for $1 trillion in new spending on roads, bridges, and other construction during the next decade. It also would drastically shorten project approval times, according to the Trump budget proposal. The funding would come from $200 billion in tax breaks over 9 years that would then, in theory, leverage $1 trillion worth of construction. A senior White House official has said the infrastructure plan might also incentivize local governments to selling their existing infrastructure to private firms. But Democrats have warned that the Trump budget reduces infrastructure spending elsewhere. To Amtrak subsidies, the elimination of the infrastructure investment program started under Obama, and more than a trillion, or I'm sorry, try that again, and a more than $90 billion drop off the congressional support for Highway Trust Fund over 10 years. Democrats have also been critical of Trump's interest in foregoing public-private partnerships instead of more traditional spending on infrastructure projects. At the same time, many conservative Republicans have been very wary of the idea of a massive government investment. And with Republicans in control of Congress, Democrats have shown little appetite for working with the president as he faces inquiries into Russia and takes a combative approach overall, from Comey's firing to the withdrawal of the Paris Climate Agreement. If the obstructionists want to get together with me, let's make them non-obstructionist, Trump said Thursday, discussing his plans to exit the Paris Climate Pact. We will all sit down and we will get back into the deal and we'll make it good, and we won't be closing up our factories and we won't be losing our jobs. It was off of BizPac Review. The Senate committee launches first new Clinton corruption investigation. Senate Committee on the Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley new investigation of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's effort to thwart a Bangladesh government corruption probe of Yunus, a Clinton Foundation donor and close friend of the Clintons. Article about this just a few minutes ago pretty much has all the same information. It's just from a different source. So if you want to read that one on your own, that up and read it for yourself. I mention that again because it kind of leads me into the next article, and that one is off of the Conservative Tribune. And get the hamster all caught up here. He's running as fast as he can go. It says Hillary confidant breaks silence on potential 2020 campaign run. To be investigated, and she's got a confidant saying that she's aiming to run in the 2020 election. Let's see what this says. Ever since the November election, rumors have been flying about whether or not former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will throw her hat in the ring for Trump in 2020. This week, Fox Business reported that Doug Schoen, a source close to the Clintons, claimed that Clinton was going to run. Speaking with Fox News journalist Stuart Varney, Schoen explained that Clinton was likely already in campaign mode based on the speeches. Even if it's only in her own mind, she is running, Schoen said. With her and Bill Clinton last week, and she made it very clear that she's back in the game, he explained. Clinton's actions over the past few weeks certainly has resembled that of someone who is trying to get back into the political arena. She has attacked the Trump administration endlessly and given several high-profile speeches that have brought her back into the spotlight. During the speeches, Clinton went out of her way to blame literally everyone except herself for her humiliating 2016 loss, something that Schoen said, you can say you've made mistakes. I think keys to being a successful leader to understand and communicate what your failings have been. Everybody else, Schoen said. Schoen's full remarks in a video here in this, I want to pull it up and watch it for yourself. Oh my goodness gracious. Cool. It's off of Breitbart. The hamster a second here. He's working on it. While he does that, I'll get some more articles for us. Yeah, this one says Democrats are asking Hillary Clinton to step out of the spotlight. I think they ought to ask her to step off the planet. Let's see what this says. Democrats are reportedly fed up with Hillary Clinton's litany of excuses for losing the 2016 election. You think? Goodness. I'll get it to scroll up a little bit more here. As he can go. And are asking her to step out of the limelight. Among former Clinton aides, former Obama aides, the Democratic strategist, and Clinton's remarks National Committee and others for her election loss are hurting her image and the image of the Democratic Party, the Hill reported. Really, really angry. I mean, the election was stolen from her, and that's how she feels, Clinton aide said. Go out there and publicly again and again talk about it in the DNC, Democrats. It's not helpful to the country, and I don't think it's helpful to her, the aide added. Director Andrew Terrell was restricted in his criticism of Clinton, calling her accusations against the DNC effing bullshit. Clinton has also gone on the record blaming former FBI Director James Comey, press, her primary, the general election opponents, and even sexism for her election loss. And strategists think Clinton needs to step out of the spotlight entirely and let new leaders in the party take up that role. Come across as the leader of the angry movement of what happened. Hamster jumped. Got to laughing and fell off the wheel. Oh, come on here. Funny, but you got to get back on the wheel. You know, let's get it back to where it belongs. He's finally got back on the wheel. Oh, now I got to find my place. Hard. To come across as the leader of the angry movement of what happened in 2016, then she's achieving it, said one to Obama. But part of the problem she had was she didn't have a vision for the Democratic Party, and she needs to now take a break and let others come to the forefront, despite those in the party calling on Clinton. Her aides and advisors say she will probably remain in the public spotlight to discuss the 2016 election to promote her book that will be released this fall. Democratic strategist Jamal Simons says, okay, that she should talk more she went wrong in the election as opposed to blaming others for her elections. It would be nice to hear a little more about the things she did wrong, which I believe mattered more than what she has discussed, Simons said. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. My goodness gracious. Lord have mercy. The next article is off of Newsmax, and it says Trump supporters confront counter protesters in. We'll go from the ridiculous to the sublime here. Scroll this up a little bit for me. Riot police braced for unrest in downtown Portland on Sunday as supporters and opponents of President Donald Trump faced off in dueling political rallies following racially charged killings that shook Oregon's largest city. In midday, Trump free speech rally drew hundreds of demonstrators to a public square near City Hall, where a far larger throng of counter-protesters and onlookers massed sides of the park. A line of helmeted police officers took up positions between the groups to maintain order. Both sides continually shouted chants and epithets at each other as an occasional shoving matches broke out to keep the two groups mostly separated and peaceful. Police reported 2 arrests within the first 2 hours of the gathering. Running high in Portland, a week after a man who was yelling religious and racial slurs girls on a Portland commuter train stabbed 3 passengers when they intervened, killing 2 of them. 2 of the girls accosted in the incident, which the FBI is investigating as a suspected hate crime. The other was wearing a Muslim headscarf. A 35-year-old with prior felony record was arrested and charged with murder in the May 26th attack, which Trump has condemned as unacceptable while salutating the victims for standing up to hate and intolerance. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler last week urged federal authorities to rescind a permit for the June 4th rally, saying he worried the protest could inflame passions in the wake of the stabbings. Federal Services Administration, which manages downtown Terry Shrunk Plaza protest site, saying the permit was lawfully obtained. Trump rally organizers also rebuffed Wheeler's pleas to cancel their demonstration, leading left-wing groups to organize opposing protests. The Portland Police Bureau, citing online threats of violence, vowed a show of force with help from state troopers, county sheriff's deputies, the FBI, and the Federal Protective Service, warning that protesters with weapons would face arrest. An activist with the pro-Trump group Patriot Prayer told local media he had arranged for private security to accompany his supporters. Gibson said some of those security personnel carry concealed handguns and some were affiliated with Portland, Oregon's newspaper reported. Anti-Trump activists staged a separate Poland protest on Saturday, part of nationwide March for Truth rallies in support of investigations into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election and possible collusion by Trump's campaign. Which drew a crowd of about 600, was peaceful and no arrests were reported. Next article is off of BizPac Review. It says weapons, violence, and tear gas. Anti-Trump thugs tried to shut down pro-Trump demonstrators in Portland. The thugs of Antifa got violent in an attempt to shut down pro-President Donald Trump demonstration in Portland, but it was they who found themselves shut down. Thousands gathered in the Rose City to demonstrate for and against the president on Sunday. Violent anti-Trump protesters threw bricks, glass bottles, and balloons with foul-smelling liquid substance at police before authorities swooped in, made arrests, Fox 12 reported. The police said they used less lethal chemical munitions like tear gas, flashbangs, and impact weapons to disperse the crowd, according to Fox 12. Police said on Twitter that those who were arrested would be identified and then released while an investigation continues. Authorities said they confiscated weapons such as brass knuckles, a knife, and a homemade slingshot. And there is a whole list of tweets from The Portland police showing all the things that they confiscated from these people, all the weapons. It says the protest came about a week after Mayor of Portland Ted Wheeler tried to have the permits for the pro-Trump demonstrations pulled on a train by a white supremacist. The pro-Trump rally was organized by a group known as Patriot Prayer. Photos and videos of the demonstration and violence flooded social media, and there's a whole slew of them here in this article if you want to pull those up to view them for yourself. Was off of Liberty Riders. This is the final one for the day. It says, backstabbing Bloomberg just waged war on Trump with one sentence. It appears Michael Bloomberg is officially going rogue. Shortly after President Trump's wise decision to pull out of the Paris climate change agreement, the billionaire announced his personal game plan to fight the president's wishes. Not only will Bloomberg donate $15 million over the next 2 years to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, but he's also forming a coalition to battle the White House moving forward. Honor and fulfill the Paris Agreement by leading from the bottom up, and there isn't anything Washington can do to stop us, said the former New York City mayor, who now serves as the UN Special Envoy on climate change. Mayors, governors, and business leaders from both political parties are signing onto a statement of support that we will submit to the UN, continued Bloomberg, and together we will reach the emission reduction goals the U.S. made in Paris in 2015. Bloomberg may think he's being charitable, but President Trump's proposed budget includes cuts to international climate programs for a reason. Bloomberg and his cohorts, our commander-in-chief, is choosing to put America first, ditching what he calls a massive redistribution of the United States' wealth to other countries. While Bloomberg is worried about distributing wealth outside the United States, what happens to the poor and jobless at home? This is what our president has been fighting to make clear. It's time for America to be America's first priority. For you today, if you like what I'm doing here, please give it a thumbs up. Pass it around on social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that, and that way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.